Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. This is episode 158. For those of you keeping track, I'm Aaron, and with me, as always, is Fredo and Dave. How's it going, guys?
All right.
It's a going. It's a going.
You know, it's kind of weird. The temperature. We've actually kind of had a spring in New Orleans. I mean, temperatures in the 80s, but it's a pleasant 80s. I mean, man, sitting on my back porch and it's just gorgeous. So,
Well,
hope everybody's
don't get
enjoying.
too attached to it. Don't get too attached to it. It's still gonna come to an end in a hurry.
And we're going to have a normal. If this was a video podcast, you'd see the air quotes. A normal hurricane season. So,
Knocking on all the wood right now. Yeah.
yeah.
Which
So,
over the last 15 years or so is not so good.
yeah.
Normal is not so good.
So anyway, that beginning of that season is coming up here in about a week, right? So hooray! Um, but anyway, so those are the fun things going on. But we're sitting here recording actually on. Let's just make this as kind of our opening stuff. Today is Star Wars' birthday. It was in 1977 on this date, May 25th, that Star Wars debuted in the theater. So I don't know. And the funny things about that was that George Lucas was in Hawaii running away from uh, like potential horrible reviews and plotting Indiana Jones with Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. The way the legend goes is that he had planned a vacation for the release date of Star Wars. He didn't want to be anywhere near anywhere where the movie was showing. And Steven Spielberg was also on vacationing in Hawaii at the same time. He had just finished Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was set to come out later in that summer or that year. And while at the beach, George Lucas was mentioning the idea he had about making like a James Bond version that he could make. And, Steven Spielberg said, well, don't make him a spy. That's boring. We've had Bond knockoffs left, right, and center. Why don't you make him somebody more
No,
interesting?
it
It's an
was Steven Spielberg who was
archaeologist.
saying that he
Yeah,
wanted to do a James
yeah,
Bond film, and George
yeah,
Lucas said, "No,
yeah,
do this. I got it."
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's the other way around. But yeah, basically at the beach, they sat down and came up with Indiana Jones.
But what am I wrong in remembering that Star Wars kind of coined the term blockbuster, or was that
I,
something before that? Because it's about the line being around the block. I mean, this was
Yeah.
something that they had not really seen before with movies. But you see those shots of opening day. I mean, it's like the internet was a thing. I mean,
if it didn't invent it, it cemented it. I think following on the footsteps of stuff like Jaws, two years earlier, just the idea of okay, a movie that everybody's got to go see in the summer. Star Wars is very much okay. This is the model now. This is what we're doing.
think about think about the things that Star Wars is responsible for, just kind of tangentially. I mean, it's like obviously Star Wars was, one of our favorite movies, but I mean, you talk about nobody talked about a trilogy before, and I mean, this is the start of it. I mean, now we're going to be talking tonight about Solo and whether or not. I mean, it could be argued that Star Wars did not set itself up for a sequel. It was wrapped up in a box, and it could have been just a standalone. But I mean, it went on with Empire and Jedi, and we ended up getting what we now know as a trilogy. Now everybody talks about trilogies all the time. You talk about the action figure, um, market that was kind of floundering, and or even just merchandising a movie that was unheard of. And that was George
Because
Lucas's genius of getting a certain percentage of the merchandising.
Like a creation of ILM
Yeah.
and these effects houses because there were shots that they just couldn't make. They couldn't create in the time, and it was like, well, okay, let's figure out a way to do this, and we're going to do it ourselves. And so much that stemmed out of that decision Um,
Well, but
yeah.
all really, I mean, there's always been special effects in movies, but this was like the first with really computer coordinated, motion control special effects.
Hmm.
Um, and now it's just the way things are done, you know. Um, and yeah, just yeah, all the yeah, it's so Star Wars is responsible. It's a like a broken dam for a lot of movie innovation and just and cultural innovation. So yeah, I don't
I know it's
I don't we didn't go see it on opening day. I know that the first time I saw it was not on VHS when I was in elementary school. I know we saw it in '77. Um, but yeah, it's been a thing that made my brother and my sister and I closer because we talked and played Star Wars all the time. Not many other movies say that. I mean, can you pinpoint another movie where people are like, "Hey, let's play Caddyshack"? Well, I guess that's
I,
golf, but anyway, you know
that's like playing doctor, though, right? The way that movie
that's
went.
true. That's true. Uh, but you know what I mean, though. It's like there's I don't know. I
it,
can't really put my
it's a
finger on another movie that has those type of
really the only other movie I think there's only two movies that I think in my lifetime and maybe probably in your lifetimes as well have come close to making that level of impact. Actually, I'm going to name three. Batman in 1989, which in some ways re, gave it's like a rebirth for the superhero movie.
I would
It's
agree
a
with that.
it's yeah, it just saves the
That was
idea
a
of the
big
superhero
deal.
movie.
Yeah.
And just the idea, Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson, the Prince soundtrack. The other two are Jurassic Park because the special effects that was something you had to go see. Oh, you haven't seen Jurassic Park? You have to go see the dinosaurs are so lifelike, which is hilarious because none of us know how a dinosaur sounded like. But anyway, and then the other movie I can think of the top of my head that has that impact is Titanic. What's so amazing about that is Titanic was as many detractors as they had fans. It's just the fans just kept coming out after it week after. They kept. I mean, this is a movie that was still number one in movie theaters months after its release. That it's coming back to theaters for this one weekend, and bam, goes back to number one. I think Star Wars is the only one who kind of that's kind of done that.
You know,
It's
I
like
uh,
that level of cultural touchstone.
I don't think that I have. I think I have seen all of Titanic, but not in sequential order.
Mhm.
It's always been caught on TV, like a scene here and a scene there. I've never sat down and watched that movie from start to finish. You know what's we don't have to dive down this rabbit hole too far, but the thing that is different between the two that you mentioned of Batman and Titanic and Star Wars is, I mean, it's very interesting. You said the soundtrack, and that is a thing that I think that makes the Star Wars movie stand out is that it's not beholden to a good Prince album or to Celine Dion, and a song that's going to, you know, make middle school girls like, gush. Um, Star Wars, that's the thing that's just amazing is that it was an orchestral, you know, romantic score that was unheard of as well. And and the movie was so popular because of it. Yeah, it wasn't until we got the disco remix that we got anything we could hear on the radio.
We're
I got that.
talking like,
I had that album.
well, yeah, I did too. Um, the Jurassic Park was the other one he cited, which is an interesting, more of a traditional Hollywood
Mm-hmm.
uh, orchestral score, and then
It was John Williams.
yeah, and then like you could throw in I guess in modern blockbusters you could throw in the Avatar movies, and you could throw in some of the Marvel stuff because some of the numbers they put up are jaw dropping. Um, but yeah, it's
Well, and that's the other. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's what I do. But that's the other thing that Star Wars did is I kind of brought in the idea of the summer movie event. It's like that's why it drove me nuts with all these sequel kids going. or prequel or sequel kids going, we should have movies that open on Christmas. That's when Star Wars. No, Star Wars movies have always opened in May. They've always opened in May. They have kicked off, the summer, and that's Batman. I remember Batman came out about May, June as well. I mean, it was the kickoff of the summer blockbuster. That I don't think that was really a thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. Hit me up on Twitter or whatever. But until we started, it was, I think even Indiana Jones was maybe a May. So
I think so, but it's not. It's
Dave
the
is either
idea of
frozen or looking very
forlorn.
concerning at me. So
Yeah. No, but I think you get to a point which is that Star Wars cemented that idea of the summer movie event with China with Memorial Day weekend, meaning when kids are out of school.
mhm.
Because who's got the disposable income? Who's got the interest in going to a theater to see a movie two, three times to see the same movie? The adults are going to see a movie once and go home. But if you put a movie in the summer that the kids, in the hot months that the kids are going to go nuts over, Star Wars in a way cements that idea in Hollywood's mindset and has kept it in there for the next, well, what is it, 47 years now? So 46, 47 years now.
46, yeah.
So it's 46, yeah. I should know. I'm as old as Star Wars. Anyway, uh, it's a concept that it's established, and then everyone is trying to repeat that process of, okay, we have to have a summer blockbuster, and we got to tie it to a major holiday weekend, so that's why you get stuff coming out for Fourth of July. That's why you get stuff coming out Memorial Day weekend. That's why Avengers Endgame. So it's like, nope, we're putting our stuff ahead of that because we want to get ahead of everybody else. And the whole idea of when you release your movie enters into the zeitgeist of the populace, because before they're just, okay, my movie's done, we're putting it out at this point, and that's that. And there's a method to the madness of when you release a movie, and Star Wars kind of helps bring that to the forefront of, you put it in the right moment, you find its audience, you will make a ton of money.
Well, there you go. Yep. And Dave is back and moving. I took a screenshot, so I'll share it later. Uh, but all right. Well, yeah. So happy birthday, Star Wars. We wouldn't be doing this podcast without you. Let's do some quick trivia here real quick. Dave, I'm going to start with you. All right. Who tells Obi-Wan Kenobi that Qui-Gon Jinn, quote, was once my apprentice just as you were once his? Who tells Obi-Wan Kenobi that Qui-Gon Jinn was, quote, once my apprentice just as you were once his?
That would have to be Count Dooku.
Is Count Dooku from your favorite prequel movie, Attack of the Clones?
We would also have accepted Darth Tyrannus.
Revenge of the Sith is technically my favorite, but
Oh, is it right?
yeah, I just have a lot of admiration for the fact that he swung for the fences in Attack of the Clones.
All right. I have a rule that I have to go with the first one I saw, right? So, all right. Well, Fredo, here you go. I'm gonna throw
Captain
this.
Panaka.
I'm gonna throw
Captain
this
Panaka.
one. I'm gonna throw this one underhanded, and actually, no, not even underhanded. We're just gonna put on this tee here for you, just a whack over the fence. Who advises your eyes can deceive you? Don't trust them.
That would be old Ben Kenobi.
So that's the correct answer. So this is funny. This is my first gig teaching right out of the gate, and I was teaching marching band. We're learning we're running through the drill, and kids were still like in their music, and I was trying to get them out of their music and just play it from memory. And I used the line, I said, your eyes can deceive you, don't trust them. And I heard from like about 50 yards away, it's when the Falcon was coming out of hyperspace and Ben was talking to Lou. One kid explaining to another where that quote came from. That was just awesome. Okay, so to me, another Qui-Gon question. What human frailty, according to Qui-Gon Jinn, quote, can be a powerful ally? What human frailty, according to Qui-Gon Jinn, quote, can be a powerful ally? I'm going to say fear. No, it's greed. I got the hard one today. It's greed. How can greed be a powerful ally?
Because he's talking about getting Watto to bet on the race and fleecing him, essentially.
Yeah, but the way that's phrased though is that if you are greedy, that can be a powerful ally for yourself. Like, yeah. Anyway, all right. Well,
Their greed can be a powerful ally for you.
yeah. Okay. Well, it's 2-1. All right, you guys win. So, all right. Well, let's see here. What do we got for news this week, Fredo?
Well, we got a hope. We got some sad. We got some happy. We got some interesting. So let's start with the sad. And this came out yesterday. We have to say goodbye to one Ray Stevenson, who, for fans outside of Star Wars, he played Blackbeard in Black Sails. He was awesome in HBO's Rome as Titus Pullo. In the Star Wars world, he played one role that we know him and one that we're gonna know him as. He was the voice of Gar Saxon in both Clone Wars as well as Rebels. Oh, and he played Volstagg in Thor. One of
he
the
was
Warriors Three.
also wasn't he also? No, he was not the voice for a guy in Rebels.
Yeah, Gar Saxon.
Well, Gar Saxon, but there was another dude. But I'm thinking, never mind. I'm thinking of a totally
He
different.
might have been.
Yeah, no.
And then he was set to play one of those weird orange lightsaber wielding characters in Ahsoka, Balin Skull. So yeah, he passed away yesterday, ripe old age of, excuse me, of 59. I mean, that's amazing. Isn't that really young? But yeah, unfortunately, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and loved ones. It's surprising because if you ever see one of his, if you ever see like Punisher Warzone, it's such a silly movie and it delivers great. But I always tell people go back and watch Rome. That show is what Game of Thrones should have been. It's just because in 2 seasons they crammed so much good stuff and his character's amazing. So anyway, condolences. Moving right along, we'll go to the happier news. First bit of happy news is we just had Carrie Fisher get her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame at the start of the month. And we're going to end it with another character from Star Wars, Ming-Na Wen, from who's Fennec Shand in Book of Boba Fett, and who was, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and who's really been in everything you can imagine in Hollywood for the last 40 years.
She was the voice of Mulan.
Yeah. Voice of Mulan. I mean, you can, she's done everything under the sun. She's gonna get her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame this Tuesday, May 30th. Excuse me. So good bit of news there for her. I mean, it's recognition of her never-ending work. I mean, she's awesome. She delivers wherever, whatever role you cast her, and she's in everything.
I'm glad that they ended up. I was actually quite worried when the first season of Book of Boba, or not first season of Mandalorian, and we got one episode and she was thought to be killed off. It's like, why do you bring in that caliber of an actor to kill them off in one episode? And I'm glad that we've gotten more of that character. And she was awesome in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That was, I think, one of the better characters of that series.
So, and again, it's interesting that she ends up, whether it's a starting role, a supporting role, just a cameo, she's great in everything. And yeah, glad for her. Kind of a break. I'm gonna pause right quick because we did get another bit of news today. Kind of from One Tick News, they're exclusive, wrote today that Temuera Morrison will be making his return to Star Wars in Ahsoka as CT-7567, aka Captain Rex. So we're gonna get our Captain Rex live debut in Ahsoka, which is kind of fun that they went and got, because we had seen Temuera in Obi-Wan Kenobi playing one of the old grizzled clone troopers that was down on his luck, but here he's going to be actually playing Rex after playing Boba Fett in Boba Fett.
So it'll be interesting to see if he if the voice is different, or if he takes from who's the guy that did all the clones?
D. Bradley Baker.
Yeah, because Captain Rex has a very distinctive kind of pitch and cadence, and that was very different from Tamura's Boba Fett. So,
Or Django, yeah.
yeah. So it'll
Yeah,
be interesting to see if we get any of that.
yeah, it'd be interesting.
And will
Yeah,
we get
but,
confirmation that he was what's his butt on Endor? You know, the guy with the white beard. So
that everybody says it's him. Yeah. No, it's interesting, and I'm kind of glad. I mean, look, you got the opportunity. He's there. You can make him part of the show, and it's another little bit of
uh,
lagniappe for the
do
fans.
we? Man, are we going to? Let's speculate. Do you think we'll get a glorious guns ablazing ending for Captain Rex, or is that going to come in Dave Filoni's movie? Maybe
Maybe something like that. Yeah.
he's
It'd be,
either he has to go down in a blaze of glory.
he deserves an ending, right, of some
Yeah,
kind. Whether it's him going off to the retirement farm or whatever, but we deserve to see Rex's ending. I
he's
think.
already gone off to go fishing. You can't go fishing twice. I think that. Yeah, I think he's gonna. I think it's gonna be a kind of like Independence Day and Randy Quaid, type of a deal.
Well, and my thing is, I wanted to push back against it, but then I just realized Dave Filoni gave us Cat Bane in Book of Boba Fett, and 2 episodes later, he was gone. He was dead. So there's no guarantee that you're going to bring your favorite characters from Clone Wars and Rebels, finally get them in live action, that they're going to stick around for long. If anything, Filoni might just go, yeah, you know what? Here you go. You like him, kids? Bam, there you go.
So
One
I'm gonna
one thing,
go
yeah,
ahead, Dave.
I'll make one brief suggestion that
Hmm.
might be a possibility here, which is that he could play the older sage character within this context, because we know the clones age faster. We know he was pretty dang old in
That's true.
Return of the Jedi. He may be the guy that Ahsoka goes to visit to grab some wisdom from. May play
And I'm
that
just
role.
thinking, and I'm just thinking in terms of if you're trying to plant the seeds of the resistance for the sequels, who better to start that training aspect than somebody who's been through 2 intergalactic
Does
civil wars?
does he know? I don't think in any of the Clone Wars or Rebels, I don't think it's been revealed to him that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader. That'd be interesting to see anything,
Mm.
any sort of thing with that.
All right, so then the next bit of news, actually, it's less news and more possibility. So Natalie Portman was doing a GQ interview with online, talking about her Twitter, social media presence, the soccer club that she owns in Southern California. And so somebody asked her, hey, would you be open to coming back to Star Wars, maybe finishing Padme's story, maybe doing something else? And she goes, nobody's approached me with anything. I'm not against
It's
it.
what they
I
all
love
say.
it. Right, right. And part of me was thinking, but at the same time, you don't necessarily, you could always bring her as one of her handmaidens, somebody grown up. There's ways to bring Natalie Portman back into Star Wars. I mean, we've already had Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen. You had all these characters who, from the prequels, we thought would never see again back in.
Well, here's
So it'd be
the
interesting to see if you want to bring her back. You could.
in one of those tales of the Jedi. I mean, it had Ahsoka at Padme's funeral, and she said,
Mhm.
and Bail said, "Why are you here?" She said, "Well, she's my friend." And so if Hayden Christensen is going to be in the Ahsoka series, um, and feasibly in a flashback form, well, obviously it would have to be in a flashback form because
Mhm.
he dead. So why not a Padme, Anakin, Ahsoka, you know? So as we're talking about this Ahsoka thing, I do remember what I was going to say. Um, this is not. It's not like I lay in bed worried about this and like, oh no, the series is going to be ruined for me. I am. It'll be interesting to see how I react to different voices for characters. It's not like we just got like a couple episodes of these. We got 5 seasons of Rebels or 4 seasons of Rebels and 7 seasons of the Clone Wars, and you're used to these voices. And we're going to hear a different Hera. We're going to hear a different Sabine. We're going to hear a different Ezra. We're going to hear a different Ahsoka. We're gonna,
Different Rex.
we're gonna have different Rex, and so will I? How long will it allow me to go? Okay, I'm cool. That's what I
And
was
what
worried about with Solo, and they got the cadence, and they got Don Glover and oh, what's his bucket,
Alden
Alden
Ehrenreich.
Ehrenreich. Yeah, they got the cadence and the kind of mannerisms right, and it was like, okay, I'm cool. And I suppose it'll just be interesting to see. So
And what's interesting is, whereas say with Rebels, we have a bit of distance from those characters because how long ago did the finale air? It's been a few years. We're still hearing Rex till this season. He was just in season 2 of The Bad Batch.
yeah,
Hmm.
And one of the great talents that D. Bradley Baker has shown is the ability to develop personalities within these characters so that even though they're all clones, Tech doesn't sound the same as Wrecker, doesn't sound the same as Rex, doesn't sound the same as Wolf, doesn't
but
sound the same as Jesse.
to
So,
Dave's point though
mhm,
earlier, that the benefit that we have is that this is going to be a
old man
old Rex, so it's going
Rex.
to be there's going to be some forgiveness there. So
Mhm.
You were also talking about like the flashback potential a minute or two ago, and I feel like if they did that, I would really like to see Ashley Eckstein voice Ahsoka in that situation, or somebody with a brighter voice
mm-hmm.
than Rosario, just to offer a little more connective tissue that feels more appropriate because during that time period, her voice was completely different.
Yeah.
So, um, I'd like to see that. It would be a nice like nod if they did that. If they're for whatever reason we're doing a flashback with Padme, I'd be like,
Related
hey,
to that,
maybe throw Ashley a bone. And
I saw Rosario Dawson made a post on Instagram, and um, basically celebrating the friendship that she has with Ashley Eckstein. And it's like I talk about my first teaching gig. The first thing I did when I was taking over for a guy who had been band director there for eons, and he was everybody, like everybody's grandpa. He was and the most beloved person in the town. And the first thing that I did was made sure that I made friends with him. And it's like, and so I think Rosario, um, by I think she's been very honorable, um, and very, you know, um, what am I trying to say? Just it's just been very good to Ashley through this, and she recognizes that what Ashley created this character. Yeah, Dave Filoni created it, but I mean it was Ashley's voice and heart and blood, sweat, and tears. Um, so she's
And
she's done a good
to,
job
to,
in honoring that.
to that point, and I think it's something that there's a certain level of recognition that it's emerged over the last generation about not just the quality, but the talent and the effort put in by voice actors into animated roles, whether it's on TV or movies or whatever. And I'm just thinking of, how many people still to this day recognize Mark Hamill as quote unquote their Joker? Or Kevin Conroy, may he rest in peace, as their Batman. And that's, when you talk about the performances and the imprint that they left, Ashley Eckstein is Ahsoka as much as D. Bradley Baker is all these clones, and Sam Witwer is Darth Maul, you know, because those are the voices that everybody grew to accept and communicate with and love. So it's a good sign when another performer, another actor recognizes, okay, this is not me trying to make the character mine. This is me getting that torch handed to me and being respectful of what's come before, even though I have to put my own spin on it. Because I mean, ultimately, that's the reality. Every actor has to do their own thing.
And I'm glad you brought up Sam Witwer because that's a real life example of them bringing that voice actor back. Um, you get to again to offer a little bit of that connection, but also probably to be kind to that voice actor and say, "Hey, you were a big part of this for a number of years."
So have to share this with our listeners. This thing I shared in our in our private Twitter group that it was obviously a spoof that or obviously not accurate, but is said a script, a page of the script from the Ahsoka show,
Mhm.
or no, from Dave Filoni's movie has leaked, and it says interior hangar bay daytime. Ahsoka Tano, we need to take the fight to Thrawn. Bo-Katan Kryze steps out from the shadows. You'll have my dark saber. The Mandalorian steps out of the shadows. And my jetpack. The camera slowly pans 360 degrees in a similar continuous shot. Boba Fett and my flamethrower. Captain Rex and my blaster. Sabine Wren and my spray paint cans. Sam Aurelios and my paws. Baby Yoda, in parentheses, he can talk now. And my Marlboro Reds. Ezra Bridger and my can-do attitude. Cal Kestis. I'm Cal Kestis. Hondo Anaka and my knowledge of business. Zero the Hutt and my delicious Cajun gumbo. I about spit when I was reading that thing. It was so dang funny. My Marlboro Reds. But the other one I just loved was I'm Cal Kestis.
Cal Kestis. Yeah, Matt Damon. Yeah. Perfect.
Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Matt Damon. Oh my gosh. So I'm looking forward to the Ahsoka series. And you mentioned Sam Witwer. I've heard smatterings will Maul be involved. I mean, again, if you want to, you could have a flashback that has Anakin and Ahsoka going up. Of course, the first time she ever went up against Maul was in the season 7 of Clone Wars. So, yeah.
She was on her own.
Anyway, man, we're starting to get into for Christmas, I'd like a pony. Anyway, all right. So let's move on with more news there, Fredo.
Okay, yeah. Speaking of ponies, I'm going to skip right quick because the last bit of news is going to take us a hot minute. So I'll just throw in the rumor about the Assassin's Creed publisher Ubisoft, the big French video game developer, is working on an open world Star Wars game, and they're saying you may be getting your hands on it sooner than you think.
Is this like Star Wars Fortnite?
Not really. It's more these. So if you ever played an Ubisoft game, they're the guys who developed the Assassin's Creed series, Far Cry. These are the people which is kind of like an open world. In this case, be an open universe. They've developed some other concepts. So first revealed back
Just
in
Dance, baby.
Yeah.
Just Dance. That's what we need.
Well, we already had that. Insert I'm Solo in here. They also did the Division 1 and 2, so military loot shooter. So the project's called Project Helix. It's being developed by a studio, Massive, under Ubisoft. So the idea is that it's going to involve some interplanetary space travel. It's going to involve a lot of the similar action elements. Supposedly, it's meant to take place sometime around the Mando first period, and they're hoping to potentially have it out for Christmas this year. Now, they do admit, and this is usually true, and Dave can speak to this as well as I, video game releases are sketchy. They're not out until they're out. They could tell you it's out this Christmas and may have to get pushed to next summer because stuff is not working right. And so the idea is that they're going to have a big summer showcase on June 12th where they're going to show off all their video games, and in the middle of that, they might officially reveal their Star Wars game that they've been working on for now going on 2.5 years. So it'd be interesting to see. I mean, look, the last Star Wars video game not named Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order, that was a hit. I mean, Squadrons was a fighter video game. You're piloting. And then you had Battlefront 2. But you really haven't had a story or an open world Star Wars game since the Knights of the Old Republic series. So this would be an interesting one to see if they go like Assassin's Creed, but Star Wars. And the crowd goes mild. So
Hooray.
Let's move. Right, yeah. Let's move right quick to the big news of the week, which all the news were big, but this was the biggest. We like to title this "Aaron was right," and this is Aaron's victory lap. It officially came out last Friday.
Now, I take no joy in this. I take no joy in this, but go ahead.
Disney World is closing Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. The final sailings will take place the weekend of September 29 and 30th. According to CNN, when asked Disney why the attraction was closing, a spokesperson said it was a business decision and did not elaborate. Obviously, when you're talking about paying anywhere from $4,800 to $6,000 per cabin for 2 nights in a very immersive element, you know, it kind of shows that it probably ran its course. So new bookings are still available. They shut them down, but then yeah, the final run starts on September 28th. And after September 30th, Disney says, yeah, guests will be called to discuss their options and modify their plans. And and obviously, what before we discuss all this, a thought to all the cast members who gave so much effort and time into this, because now
So
they're gonna have to be switched to other stuff.
yeah, to that though. So I watch and listen to some Disney podcasts and other
Mhm.
Star Wars podcasts and stuff as well. First of all, it sounds like the cast members. I think they're going to be like repurposed into Galaxy's
Mhm.
Edge, which or basically they're not getting fired, but they're thinking that you could easily take, because the idea of Galaxy's Edge was for like alien people to go, be wandering around, just be, just you have more characters now that you can have, in Galaxy's Edge. You could take the singer, the musical talent and stuff like that. Why not put them in Ogas? Have them, do like one or two songs every hour, because you only get 45 minutes in Oga's Cantina. So there's things they can do with all those characters. Um, Here's the interesting thing. I mean, it cost $300 million to build the Galactic Star Cruiser, and so they were not making money. We talked about what would they do with it. What are they? That's the whole thing now. Is like, what are we going to do with this? $300 million to build the Galactic Star Cruiser, and they're not. They haven't made a dime back yet, and so they need to do something to start making money, or they need to level it. And so here's some things that to think about. My wife and I were talking about this at dinner tonight, because she's like, you just can't level it. I'm like, yeah. I mean, it's like you spend $300 million on something and then just level it. It's like, that seems dumb. But here's the thing that's going against it. We talked about. I mentioned once before they should make it like an attraction, for Galaxy's Edge. Problem is that as I think about that, it's like, what are you gonna do with like the 100 hotel rooms as part of that, and not guarantee that like high school and college kids are going to break into one of the rooms and do what high school and middle school kids do in hotel rooms. So you got 100 hotel rooms to deal with. So the other thing, it's like, okay, well, you could make it into just a hotel. Don't make it the murder mystery hotel. Just make it a Star Wars themed hotel. That's cool. There's a couple of things that are going against it here. There's, first of all, no pool. If you're going to spend money on a Disney pool or a Disney hotel or any hotel, and you're going to take kids, you're going to need a pool. I mean, that's just kind of, if you don't have a pool, it's like, what are we doing here? Other thing is fitness center. Standard hotels have, these certain amenities that the Galactic Star Cruiser does not have. Another one is that it does not have a parking lot. It's valet parking right now, because they take your car and they park it in the cast parking. It's also not really, there's no easy access to Hollywood Studios. They put you in a shuttle, quote unquote, a themed, box truck to take you into Galaxy's Edge. But there's some logistic things that, like, yeah, make it into a hotel, but then it's like, it's not in a really good location for a standard resort hotel. And same thing goes with making it another part of the attraction. Now, could they dump more money into building a pool, parking lot, fitness center, and retrofitting it into a hotel? Absolutely could. And actually, you know what? That might get me to go, because I'd go stay for a couple nights in a Disney trip at a Star Wars themed hotel. Maybe not all the days that I'm there, but I'd go to stay at the Star Wars hotel for a couple days, you know.
If it were reasonably priced, like a couple
Right.
$100 a night, yeah.
Right. Or even the moderate hotel price, or because Disney has the tiered pricing. I think they could make an argument because of the theming. I mean, obviously, to make it in one of those moderate or value resorts, but there has to be some amenities, because there's people didn't see the value for what they were, getting. And there just wasn't the repeat business, it's,
And I think you hit a point right there regarding repeat business, because the whole point of it was that you were going to live a Star Wars experience, whether you pick the light side or the dark side, whether you pick being a smuggler or being a Jedi, helping the resistance, whatever. I think inside a lot of people recognize mighty quick is that this wasn't a choose your own adventure where you had to come back and pay another $6,000 to come back and find out how it could have ended different. This wasn't Clue. We had multiple endings. At the end of the day, the ending was the same, regardless of whichever way you went in. So it didn't engender in the fan base the need to return. So it's more like a ride where, look, we all love Splash Mountain or whatever it gets repurposed, whatever new thing it's going to be. But if you've ridden Splash Mountain once, you kind of know where the jump is coming.
yeah.
This isn't a surprise.
But I still go on some of these rides over and over and over again. It doesn't matter
True.
to me,
But
now
the cost of entry is not 6,000.
the other thing, right? The other thing was in this podcast I watch that it's hosted by a travel agency. They said the ironic thing is that now that, like, have you ever seen the South Park episode where Cartman gets a theme park and he says nobody can come, and then everybody wants to come to this theme park that had been tanking? They're saying that their travel agency is getting now like more calls than ever to book the Galactic Star Cruiser because now it's going away. But I mean, again, it's going to come down to Disney's got to figure out how are we going to make money on this, and it might end up being one of those things where they just eat $300 million and level it. But I think we're going to see, I think they've proven, though, it is a proof of concept that you can develop these immersive things. But I think they've realized, okay, we shot the moon on what it was going to cost us, and I don't know. I think they're going to learn from it, but I don't know.
My thinking on this has been that it resembles a prison, so they should make it into the prison from Andor, and then stage a prison break.
One way
out.
out.
Yeah.
Out.
And it could be, and I said it could be an escape room, where you actually have to solve puzzles and figure your way out. And
I think that would be awesome too. But again, it's like, how do you get people there? You know what I mean?
Well,
so there's got to be, and so that's the whole thing, is that there's, whatever they do, they've got to make it part of Galaxy's Edge. They got to make it accessible to people in the park, and that's going to take more development. And if you've already spent $300 million and are losing money, are you going to put more money into something that may or may not get your return on your investment? So, and as much as
likeliest answer is no.
I mean, right. And so, so I think there's tons of things they could do, but it just comes down to, and that's why I was sitting there thinking, and I didn't say this one out loud, as like, do you think that there's any part, and I think about my job and when we're in the design process of a product, and I've never heard this question come up. It's like, what happens if this doesn't go well? What's plan B? I mean, you don't want to approach a project from a negative standpoint, but it's like, when they design Galaxy's Edge, do they think about what happens if this tanks? What's plan B that we know we'll be able to? It's like when you're playing a gig and it's like, I'm going to do an original song, and that went like crap. All right, time for Brown Eyed Girl, and everybody's back into it. Here it's just like you're stuck with nothing but original content and a crowd that's mad at you because you're not playing Brown Eyed Girl. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, ultimately, they've already invested the money in some aspect. They need to figure out a way to kind of make it um, palatable for people who come in. And now, whether that's um, the escape room idea that Dave has, or whether you can simply retrofit it to be a more standard hotel experience in Disney World, where yeah, you get your business center and you get your buffet, and you get a pool. There's some ways to go about it. I wouldn't trust that Disney would find a way to turn it from a negative to a positive. It's just, and I think it's surprising that they put so much into it, and they were so adamant that this is going to be such an experience. And you remember, I mean, the excitement.
Well,
We were talking about the barriers and the issues, but there was still a level of excitement when it first opened up. And I don't know if
it,
if it was just the pandemic or the economic realities afterwards. It just didn't connect with
no,
fans.
it's different because and
Mm-hmm.
we don't we can I'll say this, then we can move on to our main
Mm-hmm.
topic. But um, it Disney under Bob Chapek, they said the quiet part out loud. They said they said yes, we are trying to price people out of coming to Disney World. They're making things so expensive so they get the quote unquote maybe right people to come to the park. And so, you raise hotel prices, you raise prices on a cheeseburger, keep raising prices, raising prices, raising prices, and a family. It becomes a Disney trip is for a lot of families. Like my family growing up, it was once in a lifetime. You know,
Yeah.
for my wife and I with no kids and minimal debt, we can go multiple times. Through our lives as a couple. If we had 3 kids like Dave, it'd be different. A different reality, and it becomes like, okay, you know we got to make this count because this might be the only time that we go to Disney. And then but they keep raising the price, so they were trying to price people out. So the cost of this, they had to pay for actors. I think they had on one side, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. And I appreciate them doing that, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. But the problem is that it cost a gazillion dollars. So
How many rooms was it again? You'd
100, I
mentioned
think. I think it's 100
100 or
rooms.
so. Yeah, again, like think about the math on that. I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda, and the development budget on that must have been obscene. Um, and it offers this immersive experience where you get to choice A takes you down this road, choice B takes you down this road, and you can choose to just like build things if you're a tinkerer. You can choose to go on adventures if you're more into that sort of thing. Just like it's a great game and it's very well received. But they can sell 10 million copies in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So they can price it affordably and everybody can get into it and enjoy it. And it's just like the math on this 100 rooms, and
Even as a hotel, it becomes difficult to, you know, make your money back.
yeah, yeah.
Because
I
if you
mean,
say, like the moderate hotels run like about 750, no, I'm sorry, maybe about $600 a night, let's say that. So you have 100 rooms at 600 bucks a pop. Well, do the math. What, we get $60,000, and
Yeah,
you spent 300 million building this thing. I mean, okay, kids
300
out.
million divided by 60,000.
Let's see when
That's
you
how
can
many
get your
days.
note paid, right?
Yeah.
Um,
right. But
so
then that also factors in the building cost, doesn't incur all the continuing costs because you have all the costs that come with running a hotel, feeding people, cleaning rooms, all the linens, all the stuff. And the difficulty here is it's not just like, if you go to your standard Disney hotel or resort in Orlando, okay, they make your bed every day, but they're just putting standard white sheets over standard white sheets. If you go into the Fresher or you go into your Galactic Star Cruiser cabin, no, it's got to look like a certain way. You're not just getting the whatever stock they got in discount. So, every cost that they had went up and up and up in order to sell the immersion, which unfortunately was impossible to keep. So it's like you're throwing more money at it just to try to keep it from going under.
But I don't think, again, this is my parting shot. I don't think that this is the end of this whole deal. Because what they did in developing the lightsaber and the storyline and the characters and all those things, it was an Imagineering masterpiece. And they're not just going to chuck every bit of that. They're going to try to figure out how to implement those things. And you're going to see more immersion like this, in places in the parks. But anyway, so let's, is that the end of the news?
That's it.
And I didn't say at any point, Fredo said I was right. I didn't say I was right. But no, what we
we were all obvious though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't seem like it would work. It just didn't. So, but again, like hope they can figure something out that will make fans happy. That would be my hope.
Yeah. So the thing I brought up to the guys this past was it Monday or Tuesday was Make Solo Happen 2 day. Make Solo 2 Happen Day.
Solo.
And the podcast, the Resistance podcast, Resistance broadcast, over on the Star Wars Newsnet, they started this whole thing. They're big Solo fans, and it's the whole thing is that every year is just to get that hashtag trending because they want a sequel, and a lot of us want a sequel for Solo. I think Solo gets a bad rap, and so the question I posed to you guys in our chat, though, let's take it because we've talked about this before, and maybe we can highlight how. Let's talk about first just the ways that Solo set itself up for a continuation of the story. I said earlier that A New Hope could be just a standalone movie, and we don't ever get Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back. We don't get either of those, and everything's cool. We have a great movie that lasts for eternity. But Solo is different. There's a couple elements in there that sets us up for we could take this down a couple paths. So, want to talk about that just really quick, but then the other part of it is the way that this story has continued, because it has, is through comic books and other media. And how do we feel about that? So I guess first of all, the ways that Solo was set up, the obvious one, big one is the Darth Maul thing at the end. Come to me on Dathomir.
With Kira.
With Kira. Okay. What other ways did they set us up for a sequel?
Well, I mean, you have Han telling Chewie that he's got a good feeling about this job he's going to go to Tatooine to talk to somebody about.
Right.
Clearly setting up the idea that
Jabba
he's on his way to meet Jabba the Hutt. So he's going to start working for him. So that's another way. The way that they live it with emphasis and kind of the burgeoning, not quite rebellion yet, but the fact that this is another element of the rebellion that's out there. So they do a good job of setting up some kind of story ideas that could bring these characters back or could not if they didn't need to. But yeah, it was set up in such a way that I think they thought we might want to revisit this at some point. And definitely Lando, of course. We know Lando. We would love to see him again at some point, but never have.
Kira's story is sort of, I mean, obviously intertwined with the Maul stuff, and like that's all very, sordid and intriguing. But yet, we don't know a lot about her until, like you said, some of these other media come out. There's a book about her coming out.
comic book series as well has been out, where it's a continuation of her story with Crimson Dawn, um, and also so giving a lot more backstory of her and her
I
feelings
mean,
about Han.
yeah,
Um,
then we have the whole War of the Bounty Hunters where they're all
yeah.
fighting
hmm
for
Yes.
Han and Carbon.
And she was the one that ended up getting. So I guess okay. So that again, that was the conversation tonight. How do we feel about that? Because if here's my take on this. Like, okay, so we have a sequel that tells the story, or continues the story, and I pay my whatever it is, $15 for a ticket to go see that story, and that started in a film and continued in a film. Um, the way they've done it now is they said, let's just take the Kira story since we were talking about it. They set it up in Solo, so I paid my $15 to see the movie, and now if I want the rest of that story, I've got to pay $30 for the book that Dave mentioned that's coming out. I've got to pay what's a comic book going for now? $5?
About
Five
$6 again.
for a comic book that's then I'm going to have to buy another one in a week or two, to continue that story. So much like what we're talking about with the Disney, they're starting now to nickel and dime me if I want to get that entire story. And I guess how do you guys feel about that? I don't mind Star Wars stories being told in different media, but you know what I mean. You
I
know what I'm
think,
getting at.
yeah. No, and I think here's the interesting part. Having liked other kind of geeky, nerdy media properties, I'm somewhat accustomed to that element. The idea of, hey, this story didn't finish in the TV show or movie. You're gonna have to buy the book by the series or movie writer in order to get the ending that you didn't get or that you were promised but didn't get. So it's new, maybe new to Star Wars, but it's new in general. Uh, even something like it's hilarious. I was thinking, even something like the original actual sequel that Richard Donner wanted to do for Superman 2 actually came out in a comic book. It's actually called Superman for Tomorrow, and he co-wrote it, and Jim Lee drew it, and it was his ideas for what Superman 3 was going to be in comic book format. So if you want to see it, it exists in a way. You don't have to go and read it on a Wikipedia page. You can actually enjoy it in a different medium. But I do recognize that that's not for everybody. I mean, we talk about all the time when properties jump from movies to TV or TVs to movies. There's some people who don't like that transition. That there's a disconnect there, and so going from that to a printed media like a book or a comic book or a web series, it proves challenging for a lot of people. I don't struggle with it, but I also do know that there's meaningful people who like, I'm not doing that. If that does feel like homework.
I think like I don't have a problem with it, right? I actually really enjoy reading the books. I didn't read the books in the 90s because I didn't think that it seemed like quote unquote real Star Wars to me. Like it was just not. I was like, those three movies and that's it. That was it. That was the real Star Wars. Um, and so you couldn't pay me at that point to read the novels because it was like not quote unquote real. It wasn't good enough. Um, and I'm completely turned around on this. I understand their arguments that like I don't have time for everything, and I think like that's a very real concern, especially for people like who are professionals and parents, and we have lives, and you can't dedicate every waking moment, let alone all of your free time, to this one thing. Um, but I do enjoy the books, and I do like to pick up the story that interests me. I'm reading the Thrawn books. Those books to me are good. They're they're interesting. They give me a version of Star Wars that I typically haven't gotten a lot of exposure to. Um, and so for me, those like really click. I also like a lot of the stories that tie in with characters that we already know. So, like in this case, for example, we get some of these characters from this movie. I'd, principally be down. I'd be into it. But by the same token, I think like it doesn't act as a replacement for a film or even a television show. And I think like that's where this yearning sort of comes in for a lot of fans. It's just like make Solo 2 happen. That's a hashtag that recirculates yearly, annually. Um, if not more often than that. I think it gets trending more often than that, if we're being honest. But there's a reason for that, and it's not, oh, I hate the books or I hate the comics because they feel like homework. It's more just this is different. It feels different. It's more of an event.
And it's interesting.
And it's a time commitment.
Well, and it's interesting that I'm thinking here that it's kind of because you were mentioning the Thrawn books, and that's when I started getting in my head it's a chicken and egg argument, because it's like, follow me on this one. Thrawn starts as a character that in a book, and most of his story is told in a book, and then all of a sudden when he comes into Rebels, it's like, this is really cool. I get to see this, we get to see this character we've read about, and then it goes back into the books, and so we're used to that flow. Kira, let's just take that again, just that story, is a character that comes out in this movie, and now it's like regulated for the most part, comic books. And so it becomes kind of, it seems disjunct to me. You know what I mean? It would be, so, and I'm with you, Dave, that even, like the books in the 90s, it's like even books that had Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Princess Leia in them did not feel right. It felt like you were watching a high school production of, your favorite movie. It just felt weird, right? So that's my question, is that, do you think, and I know it costs far less money probably to get the comic books out, but I don't know, if you're writing a movie, do you write it and set yourself up for the possibility of a sequel, a la National Treasure 2? Or do you write it with a bow wrapped around it like A New Hope? And then if you get the chance to do a sequel, then it's like, oh, cool, we get another one. And you can say, yeah, these things, you can just in the little text, this is what has been happening, and now we're on to this new story. So
didn't they split the difference with the first movie? Really? If you think about it, because like the first
Darth Vader goes spinning off, and it's like he's not dead.
I'm talking about the first Solo movie.
Oh, first Solo movie.
Yeah, even with A New Hope, you have the whole tease of Vader, but like with the first Solo movie, it's a tidy bow basically, because it's like, how did he meet Chewie?
It's loosely bound. It's
how did he meet Chewie? How did he meet Lando? How did he get the Falcon? Bing, bing, bing. You go down the checklist, and it's like, oh, we got all the things. All right, okay. And then in the end of the movie, he gets the Falcon. So it's like, okay, all right, we're done. Nice tidy bow. But the stuff we're talking about, there's so much in there that they intentionally built for
and left ambiguous. Yeah, at the end.
Yeah. And the creators of this content, and I'm thinking of John Kasdan in particular, the co-writer, has teased like so much effort went into creating this movie, and so much love and affection for the material, and then just a lot that they left on the cutting room floor, and they had a lot planned. And he's like, I'd love to do more with this, but it just doesn't sound like it's going to happen.
And I think in some ways it also, you almost have to recognize that stuff gets developed in different eras. Historically, we're just talking about A New Hope and debut in 46 years ago. Sequels were rare. Sequels were they didn't happen. Definitely not for big movies. You could get your schlocky B movie sequel, whether it's a horror movie or a cheap sci-fi movie, but most big movies did not get sequels. It was such a big occurrence when that happened. Whereas now we live in an age where you're almost guaranteed that you're going to get a follow-up product or a follow-up uh, of something along the way, whether it's a further book or a further comic book or a TV show or a spin-off. We live in the world of the MCU and the wizarding world, and
Well, that's
there is, and that creates a dynamic where we are expecting, that despite we might get the loosely tied bow, but we're expecting there's going to be some branching off out of here.
that's a very good point in that our paradigm of a sequel, I think, is changing for us, but it hasn't changed within our brains. We think that we should have Solo 2, but we are getting, we're going to start seeing this where we're going to get this character is going to show up in this movie or Disney Plus series. So you get a little continuation of their story. Or, like I said, Emphas Nest could very easily show up in Andor season 2. Easy.
Yeah.
We could get Kira in honestly, we could get Kira in Andor season 2, you know? So like I said, I think your point, like I said, when you said we're in the time of the MCU, is that you're not going to get Solo 2, but you're going to see those characters again at some point.
You might see, look, we're talking about the Lando Chronicles or the Calrissian Chronicles at some point.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of different ways that it could go, and a lot of this is determined by money and like, oh, what's the best bet in this case? Like, how best should we budget things? And those are the sorts of considerations that ultimately define this. And so when fans try to drum up the interest and they try to get these campaigns going because they're excited for it, and they're thinking we can apply pressure and bring back this thing that we really love. I guess, like, to your pointer, and be careful what you wish for, because it may not be a feature film. It may be a television show that has zero backing from the studio, that gets no budget whatsoever. And at that point, are you even getting what you would want? I think back to Obi-Wan a little bit with this. It's like, I really enjoyed Obi-Wan. All of us did, but you can't really call that a sequel exactly. And it's like, when you're thinking about, we talked about watching these movies in a particular order, and what's the best order to watch them in? Is it the machete order? Is it the whatever?
Nope, Dave just froze.
Yeah.
I don't know where he was starting to go with it, but I will say this: I don't, people have talked about, I keep on seeing articles about the sequel to the Kenobi series, and like, I don't think Lucasfilm has said anything about, except that there's not one in the works. And B, I think I'm good with leaving Obi-Wan where it is.
I think what's interesting is, wait, Dave coming back? It might be, it might not
No,
be.
I don't think so.
No, no, I think what's interesting with it is, whereas before maybe a creator and actor didn't want necessarily to do that, you are getting that now. Ewan McGregor said at Celebration he'd love to be back for more. Same thing with Hayden. So it's the kind of thing where I think because you have actors or producers or creators who are fans, they're comfortable coming back to it. Whereas beforehand, no, once it was kind of like Harrison Ford. It's a paycheck. I did my job. I'm off. Jumping on my jet and I'm flying away. Now, if you ask somebody, Ewan McGregor, hey, would you like to do Obi-Wan one more time? Sure. Give me here's my salary. You're meeting it, and I'll meet you all at the set, and it'll be awesome. I'll have a great time.
So Dave,
You want to finish your thought?
what were you saying when you?
I'm sorry about that. The internet's really taking me off right now. Like the, it's just, we used to think about this in terms of like how can you fit everything together in a nice, neat, tidy box, and it's like the order should be this. The machete order is the
I don't think Dave's allowed to say machete.
Machete.
It's like
It's not machete. Dave, it's not machete. It's machete. There's a difference.
it's like he's saying Biggie Smalls 3 times in a row. Well, I tell you what. With that, I think maybe I will just. So I don't know. We'll see if Dave come back here, but um, and he'll probably be swearing when he jumps back on. But we were going to talk about the concept of a gray Jedi because that was another thing that has been trending this week. But I think we're going to punt that to next week. And speaking of punting, I do want to say a little bit of Saints stuff here. Did you see we had the annual rookie crawfish boil?
It was hilarious.
And
you can always tell it's not from here.
Love the lady saying, "Are you scared?" I mean, that was me in my first crawfish boil. So,
well, the interesting thing, look, if you've never been to a crawfish boil, I can totally understand it because it feels so alien. It's such an alien concept. It's almost like when you if you remember Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, when you're at the dinner scene. And I know that that one's tinged with all sorts of negative stereotypes, but that element of being out of your element, that you're in somebody else's room or dinner and you're having to consume something you've never consumed before. It can be quite off-putting, but I love crawfish boils. Crawfish boils are awesome. They give you an opportunity to share in a meal in a way that's very rare in America. And Dave's back.
Dave's back. We're just talking about the Saints rookies.
Do not say machete, Dave.
Boil.
Do not say machete.
Yeah, if you say machete a third time, your internet's gonna explode.
I guess so. Yeah. So now I'm on the phone. Did you wrap up, or are we still?
Oh, if you want to try to get your point out, well, before we sign off, but just don't say the word machete, and I think you'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah. Well, very briefly, the idea that we had a really concrete way to ingest all of this content is sort of gone at this point. There's just too much that a person can watch, and it doesn't all follow the same sort of script. It used to be 2-hour chunks. Like you could set your watch to it. You watch a movie for 2 hours, and you go on a bathroom break, and you come back, and then you watch the next movie for another 2 hours. If you're doing a marathon, now it's not even possible to do a marathon. There's just too much. Not to mention the fact that there's just no rhythm or rhyming to it in the way that there used to be. And so, like, I think like that's the idea that I was trying to convey with Solo, and it's different now, and it's okay that it's different now.
It's a very good point. If the menu is getting too big.
Mm-hmm.
The menu is getting too big. It's like it's at. Yeah, I mean, at some point, some people are never going to eat your chicken dish because they've got all these other things to choose from on the menu. When we grew up, we had 3 things on the menu. It's like when you went to McDonald's, you either got a Big Mac or you got a Quarter Pounder or you got a regular old cheeseburger. There was no such thing as chicken nuggets. You know what I mean? I go back that far. So, but the menu is getting way too big. And when menus get too big, quality also starts to suffer. So that's topic for another night. But Fredo, you got some last comment here?
No, I was just going to say regarding that. We make the point regarding the MCU. Just think of the idea of sitting down and watching all 18 movies
I did.
ahead of Infinity War and Endgame.
I did.
And now imagine somebody trying to do all the phases to get to right before we get to Secret Wars, and then tell them, oh no, you have to go back and watch the TV shows now all this other stuff.
We need another global pandemic for that to happen. Yes.
Oh no, God, but yeah, it gets to a point where you almost have to treat it like a full-time job, and ain't nobody got time for that. You get to a point where you become choosy as to what media you're going to consume because you don't. This isn't a job for most of us. This is supposed to be enjoyment, and if you're not enjoying it, you're doing it to be completist. Yeah, it's not going to be fun.
So I think like Solo can take whatever form it needs to take to serve the story, and you know, and for whatever the powers that be determine that it needs to take, you know, because like, oh, we don't have the budget for it or whatever. But yeah, you're going to have exposure to these characters, and you're going to have exposure to some of these stories, and whether it's in print form or whether it's TV, movie, what have you. I mean, just enjoy what you get, I guess, at the end of the day. I wouldn't say that Make Solo 2 happen is a bad thing as a movement goes. I think it's fun. I enjoy it, and I enjoy that people are passionate about that first film, because that first film is really underrated.
Yeah.
And it gets a bad rap because of the box office, etc. But you know, I think keep your expectations in check, as we always say. You know.
Well, all right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. And by the way, I do want to say, appreciate it. It's now become like we're starting to get some people tweeting out when they're listening to the podcast. That makes us feel good. Thank you for doing that. Share it with your friends. Of course, we don't
share with your enemies.
Yeah, share with your enemies, whatever. You know, just have fun listening. Thank you for having fun listening to Star Wars with us. But until then, until next week, we'll say who dat.
Who dat.
And everybody, everybody have a great week.
McConkey.